Hi everyone, this is Counseling 4480, Zunker Chapter 15, Career-Related Programs for Career Development in Elementary Schools. So what this chapter is about, and the next two chapters, is about how to teach, how to prep, how to talk about careers and transitions into careers at different grade levels. The American School Counselors Association has a model. It's called the Framework for School Counseling Programs, and it's seen in Appendix G. Please read it. National Career Development Association is the NDCA. National Career Development Guidelines is in Appendix H. There's career development competencies, and then knowledge acquisitions in Stage K, application in Stage A, and then reflection in Stage R. Elementary schools, public schools, open to all, standard of achievement primarily based on the needs of society. So what that is saying is pretty much we learn a lot about the things that we assume everyone should know about the world while we are in elementary school, or at least the beginnings of it anyways. Academic goal of mastering basic skills for lifelong learning. So while you're in school, you're going to learn about the basic things that you need to know: math, reading, English, and so forth and so on, science as well, and art. Expected to master skills and understand the concepts that help solve problems, think rationally, and accumulate general knowledge. Again, so this is the beginning series in terms of elementary school. Interpersonal understanding. So that means understanding how to communicate with other people and how to have relationships with other people. Social enculturation, basically meaning teaching people how to socialize. And if you think about it, in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and so forth, you're really learning how to work with people that you don't necessarily know, you're not related to, and stuff like that. And emotional and physical well-being learned through social, civic, which basically means kind of like helping, volunteering, and stuff like that. Cultural and personal goals. Vocational goals, product of the total educational experience. So part of like doing all these things is also to help you also be able to behave successfully in work as well. The search for effective schools. Number one is an active, energetic principal. Number two, an atmosphere that is orderly but not oppressive. So that means that there is order, but it's not like a micromanaging type of order where it looks a little scary. It's not too strict, but there is substance and structure to it. Three, empowerment of teachers. Participate in decision making. So do they let the teachers contribute ideas and stuff like that? Four, teachers who have high expectations that children will learn. Five, a curriculum that emphasizes academics. Six, frequent assessments of student performance, basically meaning making sure that your students actually learning something through tests, assessments, work assignments, and stuff like that. And then seven is empowerment of students, participating in setting goals, making classroom decisions, and engaging in cooperative learning activities with other students. So you'll realize that when maybe if you have kids, or you'll hear people who have kids going, oh, we need to move to an area with a better school district. And part of that is because they want to find a school that has all these qualities so that their child will have a really good education. And you can hear sometimes people go, well, you know what? I know in a private school there's more structure, and because you're paying for it, you're going to get a specific type of expectation that these things are covered. And so some people will go to private school, while others will go, you know, my public school is fantastic. And so they're going to just, you know, continue with that. Building support for career-related programs is a key to success. Convincing teachers, administrators, and parents of the need for career education. So even as young as first grade through sixth grade, what they believe in is that, you know, we need to start talking about different types of jobs. Link the connections between learn basic skills and work requirements. So maybe saying, you know, if you like math, you might want to think about going into engineering or science of some sort, or medicine. If you're into arts, you know, maybe you can become an entertainer or someone who does art or musician and stuff like that. So again, thinking about that, starting to put those little ideas into the children's heads so they can start to consider what they might want to be when they grow up. Note, schools should not just focus on this, but have at least part of this as part of their education. Human development in this time is about physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development. how they learn, respond, and their readiness for learning provide the foundation. So we hope that little kids are enthusiastic about learning and they don't actually mind doing homework because it's something that will show that they understand something. Planning strategies and joint activities with teachers and parents, such as the PTA or Parent Teacher Association. Read box 15.1 strategies for involving families to learn in learning on page 349. And then developing a sense of purpose, provide them with the means to become involved in their own development through encouragement by family and caregiver. Sometimes parents will read with their children or do homework with their children or do assignments with their children to connect and to also hopefully have conversations about, what they're learning and why they're learning the things that they're learning. And then also, sometimes children just want to share the information that they learn, so parents should be receptive when it comes to tell me what you learned about dinosaurs today, or tell me a little bit about what you learned about drawing or history about America or something like that. Resiliency in children. Again, resiliency is being able to bounce back from trauma or witnessing trauma and stuff like that. Resilient children develop the ability to cope with adversity. Adversity is hard times or hardships or trauma. Good relationships with family members and friends can foster protective factors of resilience in children. A close friend can bolster one's ability to cope with adversity. So just having that one friend to support them when they go through a hard time can mean a huge difference. We're not talking about having, 100 friends or anything like that. Just one friend is good enough. Supportive parents can enhance a positive outlook and a positive self-perception. So if your parents supported you in doing the things that you did, even if you fail or you don't get to do what you really want, is there someone there who supports you and treats you with kindness and stuff so that you feel good about yourself? Teachers can promote good problem-solving skills and self-efficacy. Again, some teachers are really fantastic at this, and they'll say, hey, how would we resolve this problem? And might have the whole class participate or just have individuals or a group of people. See box 15.2 on protective factors for resilience in children and youth on page 351. So one of the things we want to talk about is cognitive development and learning. So how do students learn? Information processing strategies for learning. So these are things where when a student receives information, how do they understand it or process it so that they're learning? One example would be memory. An external device such as a simple calendar to remember significant dates. That's one way for helping people remember what they need to do so they can understand structure and order and build a routine that is really good for them. Learning by observation, which basically means learning by seeing or witnessing something. And this is from Bandura's 5 stages of observable learning. The first one would be paying attention. So the child's paying attention to what's going on or engaged. They're going to be remembering what they observe. That's 2. 3 would be reproducing these actions, which is basically redoing what they saw. 4 is becoming motivated to reproduce these things that were observed. So why would they want to do these things? And then 5 is perfecting an imitation according to what is observed. So 5 is basically practice making perfect. So you might see a child witnessing another person on how to do a math problem. So they'll try to remember all the different steps to a math problem, and then they might get it wrong, they might not, but let's say that if they get them all right, then maybe they get a reward. So there's a motivation to it. Getting an A in the class or for a math class will mean kind of like a motivator, right? For some people anyways. And then of course, practice makes perfect. And the illustration that you see here is, a lot of babies now will see people, their parents with cell phones. And suddenly if you give them something that looks kind of like a cell phone, they'll pretend to talk on the phone and press buttons and stuff like that. And that's because they're observing and they're learning through observation. Self-concept development. Example would be Gottfriedsen's 4 stages of self-images and occupational aspirations. Aspiration is basically kind of where you would like to end up. You might not get there, but you're going to try and get towards that. Okay. So number 1 is orientation to size and power, which usually happens between the ages of 3 and 5. Children see adult occupational roles and exhibit same-sex preferences for adult activities, such as employment. So example would be maybe a child realizes that she is a girl, and then she sees what her mom does. Let's say her mom is, let's say she is a doctor, right? Then she's going to go, hey, I might want to become a doctor too because I'm a girl, my mom is a girl, so maybe that's what I should do. And maybe it's a boy, and then the boy goes, my dad is a gardener, so I think I should maybe do gardening as well. So then they start to learn that certain jobs might be for more female or more male, and then from there they might decide or associate. Two, orientation to sex roles from ages 6 to 8. Children focus on what is appropriate for their sex. Adult activities are sex type. And again, we are a very gendered society, and this is what we're talking about when we're talking about children observing and then going, hey, this is what girls do, this is what boys do. Obviously, if you do not believe in the gender construct, that's totally fine, because I think right now in 2020, a lot of people are starting to question those, and things are actually changing. A lot of things men and women can do now, but you have to think about this from back in the olden days, just even 20 years ago, 15 years ago, a lot of jobs were very, very gendered, okay? Men could only do certain things, and then women can only do certain things. And so that's something that you need to at least know about the history of work and gender constructs. And then, of course, if it doesn't apply now, then it doesn't apply now. 3, orientation to social evaluation. This is from 9 to 13. Children rule out low status occupations as preferences. So maybe by this time they're like, you know what? I don't want to be someone who works at McDonald's, right? As a cashier, because I can't buy the things that, I want. And so they realize, there's certain jobs that don't pay very well, and there's certain jobs that pay very well. Like, people always say doctors make a lot of money, lawyers make a lot of money. So then children might go, I'm going to be those things. You don't really hear a lot of people go, I want to be a can collector or anything like that, right? 4, orientation to the internal unique self begins at around age 14. Individuals gain self-awareness and project self-sex roles and social class into perceptions of vocational goal. So maybe around 14 is when people realize, hey, this might be a good job for me when I grow up, or I might consider doing this when I grow up, or, these are some of the things that I like. It's appropriate for my gender, it's appropriate for me, and it's also appropriate for where I'm coming from. Obviously, if you disagree with this is totally fine, but I'm just letting you know that there are models that show an observation of how children process vocation and work. Development by stages and tasks. Erickson says that stage 4 is from 6 to 11 years old, is industriousness versus inferiority. So are you really productive, or are you not very good? So expressing success through academic achievement is a major contributor to establishing industriousness in work role and self-concept development. So people who feel like they know how to do things or produce things, they're going to be motivated to keep on going, right? Whereas other people who might not feel good about themselves because maybe they were put down by their parents or the people around them, they might give up and not necessarily do those things, right? But we're hoping that those who do that, once they start to accomplish something, they'll be more motivated to start continuing to accomplish things. The family as a system. Family is a social system, basically meaning, in a family, people talk and have different types of relationships with each other. Comprises of interdependent elements that have interrelated functions and share some common goals. So let's say that the mom depends on the father depends on the mom, the children depend on the parents in different ways. You'll see maybe sometimes, when a child is hurt, they might go to their mom because their mom might have Band-Aids and stuff like that. But if they get into, let's say they want to talk about sports, they might go, oh, I want to talk to dad about sports because dad loves sports. And then there's different types of conversations that are being held because of the different types of relationships that people have within their own families. Genetic heritage is passed on from parents. As we all know, we share the DNA of half of it is from our father and then half of it is from our mother, generally. Common experiences and develop common perspectives of the future. The way that you see life might be heavily, heavily influenced by the way that your parents see life, right? And so sometimes parents who don't really have a lot of goals, they're too busy supporting their family, their children might go, all I need is to find a job so I can pay my bills. Whereas there are other parents who are like, you can do this, you can do that. If you need help, let me know. And then they might see the world in a different way because of that. There are current trends that are exhibited on page 355 for detailed explanation that talk about more single adults that are existing right now in today's age. A lot of people are postponing marriage, which meaning like they're going to put marriage in the back burner, think about it, but not necessarily do it at 21, 22 years old. They are having fewer children now than ever before. More women are working. There are more divorces that are happening, more single parent families, more children living in poverty, more remarriages. So people are getting married after they divorce. And then more years without children and more multi-generation families, which means maybe grandparents, parents, and children and grandchildren are all living in the same place or same home or having very close relationships that way. Culturally diverse families. Goldenberg and Goldenberg developed basically a checklist when evaluating potential conflicts with culturally diverse families. More info is on page 357 for detailed explanation, but basically what they do is they're looking at the effects of poverty, country of origin, circumstances of immigration, so reasons why people left maybe their country and moved to America, degree of acculturation, which means how much are they adopting of American culture as opposed to their home culture. Do they speak English? Do they accept westernized, let's say, behaviors that are not necessarily accepted back in their home country? Spiritual beliefs, skin color, feeling of powerlessness, poor self-esteem, the lack of trust of institutions. Sometimes we'll see that Black culture, African American culture, is not very trusting of people, of medical institutions because of various testings that were put on them by the government, unfortunately. The most famous one is probably the Tuskegee Experiment, which deals with syphilis, and the American government was saying that they were helping with it and helping treat it, but really they were not. They were treating some people but not others. And so, there is a mistrust between government and their culture. Fluency in English, which means how can they actually speak English very well. Intergenerational family conflicts. So maybe during this time, maybe the grandparents are very, very Mexican, if they're a Mexican family, and now their children or the grandchildren are Mexican American. So do they speak Spanish? Do they support the celebrations of Mexican culture, or are they much more about American culture? Lack of support in the community, discrimination, and then socioeconomic status. Types of developmental disorders. See Table 15.1 for detailed explanation on page 361. So these are common disabilities that exist, and I just want you to know them. If you are not familiar with any of these, please look in the book because it actually gives you a description of each of those things. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD. It's also known as ADD, but now it's preferred ADHD. There's also learning disorders. That might be something like dyslexia. And then communication disorders, pervasive developmental disorders, autistic disorder, Rett's disorder, and intellectual disabilities. Again, if you don't know any of these already, please read through so you can see and understand the definitions of each of those. Representative strategies for classroom activities. This section discusses actual activities to do with a group of students to enhance career exploration. So if you look in the book, it'll show you all these different types of activities that you can do with people of this age, which is elementary school, that can explore vocations and jobs. One is called the self-knowledge strategies. One is called educational and occupational exploration strategies. Another one is called career planning strategies, and then one called career infusion. So please feel free to go through and read more into these sections.